Final Flash!
Hi guys, welcome to the channel, welcome to my first ever video, and welcome to my top 64 deck profile with Green Cooler. This was for the this month's European Regional, hosted by Raiden Trade, which was an online regional. I forget the exact number of players. There was about, I think, like 200 something. But yes, just about managed to crack top 64, which I'm very happy with, considering I'm playing green. But yeah, it was a really good day. I went 4-3, so just about scraped a positive record, which was nice. But yeah, I always wanted to kind of do YouTube videos, but never really had, I guess, the right video to start with. But I thought this might be a good one to start with. So I'm just going to kind of share the deck, the side deck, and also a good overview of the matchups on the day as well. Yeah, so let's get right into it. The leader. I won't go too much into details of the leader and that, but just a kind of quick overview. This is Green Cooler. This is the Unison deck. When we swing, we take a life. We can then either draw one or play a 1-drop Unison. 9 times out of 10 we are playing a Unison because it's kind of what the deck wants to do. And we'll show you the Unisons as we kind of go through the deck. Awaken, 4 or less, untap 1, draw 1, pretty standard. And then Awaken side, Arcula Galactic Dynasty. Same as the front side, we swing, we either draw 1 or play a Unison. But we don't have to take life on the back side, which is really nice. And they both sides have the effect where if a Unison goes to drop, we get to draw 1. So our kind of game plan is we want to be cycling our Unisons every turn. I'll show you how we do that in the deck. Because yeah, it just means we draw 1 once per turn when we do it, which is really nice. We are a Unison deck, which can be a bit clunky at times, but one of the nice things this deck actually has over some other Unison decks is once we're on our Awaken side, we can actually use our Unisons as combo power, as long as they are on a Unison swing or on a leader, attack or defense. We can use it as a 5k combo power, which is really nice. So we still have combo power, even if our hand is clunked full of Unisons, which is kind of needed. So that's the leader. We'll actually get into the meat of it then. Okay, starting off things, we have 4 of Demigra Unison of Sorcery. This has kind of been a green staple Unison, and also it's kind of green staple ever since it came out. It's just probably green's best Unison, and it's actually really good in this deck. It's a +1, get 10k, so it's a 15k swing. The -3 doesn't really come up because Demigra doesn't really sit on the board for more than 1 turn, like other green decks might try and do. So it doesn't really come up. The main reason it really works well in this deck is this is your ideal turn 1. You play this, you +1, you have a 15k swing if you're going second. Yeah, and then, but the idea is the permanent. It's where if it was to lose a marker from an attack, you can just take a life instead. So if you play this turn 1 and your opponent tries to swing into it on their turn 1, you can just take the life. So you will stay at 2, which is needed for your charismatic villain. So if you want to charismatic villain on your turn 1, you can, which is really good to stop just things coming in. You just go, nope, I want to get rid of that, which is really handy. But our main thing is it just means that our Unison won't leave the board kind of in that early game, which is what's needed, because then we want to cycle our Unisons and play new ones. So we always want to have a Unison established, whereas if we start with a different one, if your opponent has enough swings, they can swing into it and clear it, whereas with Demigra, they are not clearing it. So it's like your perfect turn 1. So we try and start with one of those. Our next Unison is Frieza. this isn't a bad unison by any means. It's the one that was the SR on SPR in the deck when it first came out. It just it kind of leans more to the hand control way of playing this deck, which this version isn't. But it's still a solid card, and you need to make sure you have enough unisons in the deck to make everything work. So we run 2 copies. 2 felt like the right number. All the unisons you'll see from now on have Empower. So if you didn't know, that just means when you play a unison, the unison you play it over, you gain that many markers from the other unison. So this is Empower 3, which means it will take up to 3 markers off another unison. And all these unisons have an effect when they come in with 3 or more markers, which, as long as you're empowering over something, you will likely get, as long as it doesn't have one, or as long as it doesn't have 1 marker, you'll be fine. Freezer's effect when it's played with 3 or more is your opponent discards a card, which is not bad by any means, but you just kind of you'd want to pair it with other hand control stuff to try and rip their hand, but this deck isn't trying to do that. But ripping a card out of their hand isn't bad by any means. It's also a +1 10k, so it becomes a 20k swing, which is nice. You just have to have 3 more markers, which you will do if you empower. It's just not a good turn 1 unison. Like, if you don't have unison established, you can't swing with it because you won't have 3 markers. So it's not bad, but it's not one of our main unisons by any means. Next up is another unison. This is Salza. This is a unison that we want to always see. This is a 4 of Salza. Its effect when it's played with 3 more markers is it gets to KO something 7 or less, which is really good. This paired with Charismatic, it kind of essentially means you have 8 Charismatics in the deck, which is nuts. Yes, you have to pay 1 for it, but it hitting a 7 or less is really good. The thing at the moment, kind of meta-wise, I feel a lot of stuff has Deflect, but not a lot of stuff has Barrier. So yes, this won't be able to hit like your opponent's boss cards. They're normally like 8 or higher, but anything else they play, unless it has Barrier, you're able to clear it just with Salza. And then if we're doing it over unison, it's also draw 1. It also has a nice stat. It's a 10k, the +1 gives it 5, so you're a 15k swing when it goes back to your turn. So even on Awakened, you're swinging for potential damage. It's just, it's really solid, definitely a 4 of. Then our big boy for the deck, our boss monster, our boss unison, Golden Freeze and Newfound Might. Its effect when it's played, this one has to have 4 or more markers, but it does have Empower 4, so it's a bit easier to get, but the effect is insane. If it's played and it has 4 or more markers on it, you just KO your opponent's entire board. Doesn't ignore Barrier, but still being able to KO a whole board. It's nothing to scoff at. And neither is its other effects. Dual attack blocker, 20k is pretty good anyway, but our -4 is our big one. Activate main -4. We gain triple strike for the turn and also 10k. So we are a 30k triple strike dual attacker that also restands at the end of the turn as a blocker. This is our boss monster. This is how we win most games, just because it's so crazy. I played with the idea of going to 4, but you won't play it until turn 3, so it's nothing you can like play early, and depending on the deck, you can't guarantee that both of the triple strikes will go through. Like, your opponent will definitely have at least one negate, so playing for it and tapping out, like, yes, it will restand, but sometimes I wait till turn 4 to play it, depending on that kind of matchup. But 3 felt right for as the boss monster of the deck, but definitely one of the main pieces of the deck. Another unison staple, Kula Cruel Commander. This is one of the new cards from the recent Dash packs that came out. It works really well in this deck. I really like it. The Empower 3 for this one, when it comes in, is you get to put 1 green card from your drop into your Z Energy. So it's Z Energy generation, which is really nice because this deck doesn't really make Z Energy very well because half your deck is unison. So that's nice, and if you do that, you gain dual attack. The +1 also gives it 10k, so you have a 15k dual attacker. So what I like to do with this card, if I want to kind of get in that really early aggression, is if I have a unison established, just say like Demigra, and we're going into my turn 2, I +1 the Demigra, swing 15, swing with leader for 15, use the effect to then play the cooler, draw 1, get the cooler, so that's 4 15k swings, and I haven't spent any energy, so it's really good early aggression, especially if they're not awakened, because they have to commit 2 cards or negate or something. It's just a really good way to whittle down your opponent if that's the kind of way that I felt was the right way to kind of tackle the deck as it was. But solid, yeah, definitely a 4 of. Next up is King Cold. This is another dash pack card, a battle card. I did have this at 3 before, but I went down to 2. Not that it's a bad card by any means, it's actually really good. It's just quite match specific. And even though I don't run another one inside, 2 felt about right. If I saw it and I needed just an extra bit of protection, it works really well, especially if they have trouble dealing with barrier, because yeah, it's a 20k barrier blocker. Yes, it costs 4, well, it doesn't cost 4, it's 4, but it's reduced by 1 for each unison in your drop, so as long as you have 3, it becomes a 1 cost, which is really nice. So yeah, 1 cost 20k barrier blocker, it's nothing to scoff at. It also restands at the end of the turn, so you get that 20k swing in, and then it will restand, and also it can block twice, so when you block, it restands, and then you combo a 5k out the drop before your opponent even has a chance to combo, so then it's a 25k blocker. And if your opponent can't clear that, then you have the opportunity to block again. So it is good. What I found it's good for is good against red, in that 20k to neg isn't that hard for red, but 20k through barrier to neg is quite difficult. Yes, they could have the what is it, the Kaioken Goku, you know, pay to get rid of something ignoring barrier, but they'd have to side that card, and I feel most red decks don't, especially probably not for a green matchup. So yeah, against other decks like blue and that, like, or any of them really, they can black smoke it, but because you're paying 1 and they have to invest 2 energy for it, like, it's not an awful trade. Like, you've only had to invest 1 energy, but they have to invest 2 just to clear it. But because of that, you can't really rely on just that to help you survive the turn. We need to use some of the other cards that we've got to help with that. But yeah, especially into red, it's a good card. But 2 felt right. Another cooler card, our 1-drop cooler. This is also, you can use it throughout the game. It's not a bad turn 1. It's your searcher. You look at top 5 and take a unison, 3 or less, which all our unisons are. So it does mean we can find our Golden Frieza, which is nice. You can, if you see it, you can take the boss mods, then you know you have it. But also, you can be a bit selective in that it can help you find the unison that's really going to help you at that kind of specific moment in time and what's good against the matchup. Like, do you just need a negate? Then you can grab the negate unison, which I haven't actually revealed yet, but we'll move on to that. There is a unison that negates. Again, if it's like that turn 2, we want the aggression, we can grab this. If we know that our opponent is just going to play cards that don't have barrier, then we can grab the Salza. It's just, yes, it's only top 5, but because I forget the exact number, but pretty much almost half the deck is unisons, so you shouldn't whiff. You should at least be able to grab a unison off it, which is nice. It also has a nice another auto, which kind of works as our self-awakener. If a unison goes to drop, so when we swing and play a new unison, it becomes a 15k for the turn. And then we also have the option to take a life as well. So if our opponent is stalling us, we can actually take 2 life, so 1 from our leader swing and then 1 from the cooler. So if we're on 6 and our opponent's trying to stall us, we can actually get to that 4 and awaken if we want to. Some decks, it depends. Like, if it's a slower deck, then I'm happy to do that. But against, like, I played a lot of red at the tournament, going to 4 that early on didn't always feel nice. Sometimes it was like, I'll stay at the 6 just to kind of not be on that low life so early in the game. So it's kind of match dependent, but we have a archetype self-awakener and a 15k again for 1 energy. If we kind of do it that way, it's not bad at all. Like I mentioned with the Salza, yes, we run charismatic as well. We run 4 of, so essentially we have 8 kind of charismatic effects, which is really nice. Some people used to run like 3 or 4, but we are a unison deck, so 9 times out of 10 we will have the unison to be able to play the charismatics, so yeah, definitely a 4 of. Secret rare for the deck. This may seem like an odd choice, but full disclosure, I don't have a Cell Max, and part of me feels if I did, I would probably run it. But because I don't have it, I haven't actually tested it with the Cell Max to see what it's like. In my head, it makes sense, like Cell being just a 1-drop quad striker in a deck that's quite aggressive anyway, and then potential to like wipe the board, ignoring barrier, which again our deck doesn't really have that much barrier removal. Makes sense. Like I feel if I had it, I would run it, but sadly I don't. But that's not to say that Kibi Ukai is bad by any means. It actually put in a lot of work on the day, and it actually synergizes quite well with this deck. So if you don't know this one, activate main battle, pay 2, you play it out. Yeah, it's not a negate or anything, just activate main battle, you play it out. Once it's played, your opponent cannot swing with battle cards for the rest of the turn. So it's got that kind of floodgate effect. So ideally they swing with their leader, they don't know you're running the secret rare, so you let the attack go through, you have combo if you want, or just take the damage. But we activate battle, pay 2 to play this, it comes out, you pretty much just shut down their turn. They may have a unison they can swing with if they have a unison, but yeah, if this comes down, you've pretty much just bought yourself the turn, which is really nice. And then it's 40k double, which, yeah, if they don't remove it on that turn, then you go into your turn with a 40 double strike, which is nothing to scoff at. But also as well, which it's auto, which in this meta is actually really good. Spirit Boost 2 when it's played. So if we remove 2 markers from one of our unisons when it's played, we steal our opponent's unison. And a lot of meta decks at the moment do not necessarily rely around a unison, but they will play a unison in their deck. So red will have the SS4 Gogeta, blue, like Gamma, will have the Android 1718, also the Agent of Destruction Boo, the double striker one with the blocker. Yeah, because there's no specified, like it has to be a 2 or less or anything, just straight up steal their unison. Yeah, I did it a couple of, I did it once, yeah, I did it against a SS4 Gogeta. I stole their SS4 Gogeta with 5 markers, so they then had to swing at the unison with, what did they have? No, I had the turn, I can't remember exactly how it played out. Either way, I stole their unison and it forced them to have to try and remove markers off that unison for worry that I could then use that unison's -4 to double strike them. So it can catch people off, but again, if I had Cell, I'd probably run it, but it did put in a lot of work on the day, so a decent backup, at least, yeah. Another one of, pretty much a staple in most decks now, the Dark Broly, our Overwhelm 6, where when it's played we warp something. Pretty standard these days, use it when you're going for games, get rid of a pesky blocker and keep swinging. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Our super combos, Paragus, probably best green super combo in the game. Works well in our deck because we get to 4 pretty easy, so we don't have to worry about stuff like that. It's also nice to dig for our unisons in that. It also synergizes with another card we'll see in the deck, why we want to run the Paragus. Also as well, it doesn't come up that much, but just to have a unison that is a 10k flat base, where so many super combos these days are the 0+0, and it's only a 10 when you're at 4 or less life. So in a pinch, if you're against something aggressive maybe, and they've gone for the double, and you really don't want to take it, you can just use this for a free 10k. Yes, you don't get the draw, but I think it came up once on the day. I think it was me actually wanting to push early damage. I had a double striker with one of the Z cards that I used to push the double through. So that's really nice as well, that you still have the 10k even if you see it early and you really need to use it in a pinch. Dormant, grid staple, yeah. So the thing with Dormant, people know how to play around it now. It's not as good as it used to be, which is probably why green isn't as good as it used to be, because people know how to play around it. Yeah, like you just swing with your big card first because it doesn't negate the attack. Yes, once you've done it, they only have one more swing, but if both those swings are doubles or triples, then unless you have another negate, they're going through, and yeah, it doesn't stop the first attack. So it's why green hasn't been that great. It's not a bad card by any means, but people have learned how to play around it. With that said, this is why I think Cooler is really good, in that you can actually make Dormant work really well with this deck. We have so many options of how to stop the attack with the Dormant, and then have something else for the second to stop that attack, and then it's the end of the turn. They only have 2 swings. So there's a few cards, but ideally we've seen 2 of them already. So if we Dormant, we have Golden Frieza and King Cold as blockers, so there is still a window to block when you Dormant because the attack isn't negated. So we Dormant, and then we can block with a Frieza or a King Cold if we have them established. Remember, our Frieza restands at the end of the turn, so if you played that the turn before, that's like a guaranteed block that you have. We haven't seen them yet, but yeah, there's a couple of other cards as well that help us make sure that we don't we're able to stop the 2 attacks, so we survive the turn. So yeah, Dormant definitely still a 4 of, but you just need to make sure you have the other cards to go with it to help you buy the turn. Like, it won't save you on its own unless you're against a slow deck that for some reason doesn't have doubles or triples or something. So yeah, but still definitely a 4 of. We want to see it. Speaking of cards that work with it, probably the most standard one, because it's how most green decks do it. If you Dormant, so Dormant, block, and then use a Homicidal to negate the attack. Yes, you have to take a life, but you'd rather take 1 life than 3 if you're facing like a triple or something. So that's one way you kind of synergizes with it. So that's one card we can use to work with that. Knees. This is I think this is our last unison. This is our negate unison. So you pay 1 negate, it gets played in power. So it's got the effect again if it has 3 or more markers. This one is really nice. If you have 3 or more markers, you choose an opponent's battle card, and it can't attack until the end of their next turn. So, depending how your opponent sequenced, if they say they swing with leader first, and you negate, and then you pick their battle card, it's essentially 2 turns that card can't attack, because it's not at the end of your opponent's turn, it's the end of your opponent's next turn. So you've stopped that battle card attack, and you've stopped it for the next turn. So yeah, if your opponent isn't expecting it and they've got something big on board that doesn't have barrier, then you can lock it out of swinging for 2 turns, which is really nice. It is only a 4k. The +2 is nice, so it builds markers quite quick, but it's only +6, so it becomes a 10k, so it's not really an offensive swinger, but the negate and the auto make up for that. It's still really good. We only run 2. Without spoiling too much, I do have more on the side for certain decks as extra negates, but as a kind of the main build before siding, I only run 2, but yeah, still a very solid card. 2 Fated Rivals. So this is also why we run the Paragus Super Combo, like I said, because to play this big boy we need to put a Saiyan, Earthling, or Namekian from our Z Energy into our drop and pay 2 to play it. Sadly, this deck doesn't really run any of those 3, but Paragus, our super combo, is a Saiyan, so as long as we see one of our super combos and Z charge it, we have the Z to play our Fated Rivals. I've been back and forth on Fated Rivals for so long, just because it's a 2-card combo that yes, you have to see the Paragus, and sometimes you might want to spend that Z on something else, like maybe you don't see the Fated Rival that early on, and then next turn you do, but then you've already spent that Z where the Paragus was and it's gone. So that sometimes make it a bit clunky, but this deck doesn't really have barrier removal, and Goku's just probably the most reliable barrier removal for green at the moment. just being a 30k double strike barrier when it's played, just pop a barrier card, anything, and KO it. It's just really solid. It's just, yeah, we don't run a lot of targets to run it off. Weirdly, Dark Broly is a Saiyan. It didn't come up on the day, but in testing with my friends, it did come up once where just because I had to get a double through, I actually comboed the Dark Broly, even though it's got no combo power, but just to get it into Z, just to then use that as the fodder to play the Fated Rival. So technically we have 5, but unless you're in a really weird scenario, we probably won't use the Dark Broly as our fodder to play the Fated Rival, but it's there in a pinch. Yeah, if there was another barrier removal that kind of worked with this deck a bit easier, then I'd probably take it out. I just feel every deck needs barrier removal these days, and this is probably the most reliable one that we can kind of get for this deck, so we're kind of good to go on with the 2 there. But yeah, still a solid card. You just have to have the setup beforehand. 2 Majin Buu. This is another card that works with Dormant to help us buy the turn. This is a 1-cost negate, but in an ideal world we won't be paying the 1 because you can also use it for free if you Spirit Boost 2. We're a Unison deck, we will have the markers, so it's essentially a free negate if you Spirit Boost 2. So even if you're tapped out, you have that negate as long as you have 2 or more markers on a Unison, which you should have. I used to have it at 1 just as a kind of like surprise negate that people might not think about. That yes, I'm tapped out. You think I don't have a homicidal, or maybe I'm only on 1 life, so I can't homicidal. But if I have a Unison with 2 markers, I can still negate. So yeah, sleeper negate as it was. Sometimes people don't expect it, but it's really nice in this deck. I think there's one. I don't know if there's one for each color. I think every color has one except for black. But any deck that runs Unisons, these type of cards are really good, and especially in this deck, which is a Unison deck, obviously, it works really nicely. So we've gone with 2. 3 Cooler, Sibling Cruelty. I didn't have these in my initial build, but one thing I found is if you don't see the Golden Freezer early on, or you're just playing against something really defensive, I struggled to close out games because aside from the Fated Rival and our Secret Rare, everything is single, and they're not the biggest swingers either. They're all 15Ks. King Gods are 20, but yeah, we don't have anything big to swing with as it was. So I put 3 of these in just as another double striker to help us kind of close out games or kind of push that damage through. So similar to the King Cole, it's a full cost, but it's reduced by 1 for Unison in our drop. So come like turn 3, we should have 3 in our drop. So it's a 1-drop. So yeah, 1-drop double striker, which is nothing to scoff at. And also when it's played, we are able to take a Unison from our drop and bottom deck it. If we do that, our opponent discards a card. Again, another card that discards, so there is a build that kind of revolves around this Freezer and the Cooler and other hand control stuff, but as I say, this isn't a hand control build by any means. Yes, the discard one is nice, it can help when you're going for game. Okay, they have 1 less card in hand, that helps me go for game. The only annoying thing though, it doesn't say it, but it's in the auto. It is essentially limit 1. We can't spam these out. If we could, that'd be pretty nuts and pretty broken. So you can only play 1 a turn, which is why I was back and forth on running 2 or 3, but I found that I always wanted to see at least 1 in a game. Just paying 1 for a double striker was just really valuable, I thought, so I went with 3 for that. Yeah, just solid kind of a double striker there. 2 Shocking Death Ball. Again, I didn't have these in my initial build. I just feel I needed more hard negates. Yes, we have knees and we have the Boo. Homicide, yes, we have to take a life. But again, if we're tapped out, we can still use the Sparking 5 to negate. So another thing that works well with the Dormant, yes, we pay 1 for the negate. Or even if we're tapped out, kind of works like the Homicidal where we take a life and negate. Yes, we don't get a token, but if it buys us the turn, then that's great. One thing that did come up more than I thought it would, Similar to the Dormant, where when you do it, you get to pop a 2 or less, which I feel in previous metas didn't really come up, but it came up a lot more than I thought it did, being able to pop a 2 or less. The main one I found is it's quite good into red, like they'll play like little red things, 2 or less, but also Z cards, like you just pop a rush attack Vegeta, like if they pay 2 for the rush attack, you can just shocking death ball it and kill it. Same with Dormant, you can Dormant and that will kill the rush attack. Yeah, it's very matchup dependent, but there were a few games where I was able to just clear something just by using Dormant or Shocking, so yeah, more relevant than I thought, which is nice. My one-off, my Blue Impulse, this was a last-minute addition. I used to love this card, but with so many decks now kind of having barrier and things like that, it's not been that good, but against certain decks, it puts in work. So if you didn't know, it's pay 1, well, it pay 2, but it's a 1 if you have a Unison in play, which works well with our deck. If our opponent plays a battle card on our turn, we pay the 1, we wipe their entire board. Doesn't ignore barrier, but still, paying 1 for a board wipe is really good. Decks it's really good into red, weirdly, where they try and build up a board and most stuff won't have barrier, but the one thing it's really good at the moment in the meta is Supreme Kai of Time, because none of their stuff has barrier and their whole thing is just building a board of big cards to swing at you. The thing with the card though, yeah, so your opponent has to play a battle card on your turn, so your goal is you need to bait out a battle card to then trigger it. You could just pay 2. No, sorry, you can't. Yeah, you need to bait out that battle card. So the main way to do it against any deck is with the token negate. So token counts as a battle card, so if you can bait out a token negate, then you're able to use Blue Impulse. But a lot of decks still use like battle card negates, like a lot of Floodgate battle cards, like Gamma has the Android 14. It's not popular these days, but Topo. Again, with the Kai deck, they'll use the Kai negate, the Time Labyrinth, which plays itself, which is a battle card. So I think when it came out, yeah, like there wasn't a lot of scenarios where your opponent would play a battle card on your turn. It was mainly for the counterplays that came out with that set. So Charismatic, Yamcha, what's the other one? Vegeta. It was mainly for them, but now there's even more stuff that plays battle cards on your turn. So I think it's actually gotten a lot better. Yeah, it's really good. I have another one inside for the Kai and things like that, but it's an extra card. It can clunk up your hand a bit, so the one, if I saw it, then great. But yeah, really good. And a final card, one Champa, of course. I didn't actually have Champa in my initial build, just because we have the double, the triple, and a double here. But there were so many games when I was testing where I was like, I just need, like my opponent's on 2 life, I just need to get a double strike through. And I've used my Golden Freezer, or they've negated the Cooler, but they're tapped out now, I just need to get a double through. Yeah, they might have a token negate, but so many decks run Champa these days, and I put it in, and I did win one of my games on a Champa, so it just shows that if it comes up and they don't have another negate, then you go for game with a double. Just is a solid card since set 1, and yeah, I'm glad I included it in the end actually. Cool, so that's the main deck, so we'll take a look at the side deck. Yep, we'll do this. Well, we'll look at Z deck and then we can move on to the side deck. So, you had a little pick there, but yeah, Z deck. Our 7 cards. 1 Vegeta, pretty standard for most decks now, just as a bit of another self-awakener. Yes, we self-awaken ourselves quite well, but if we don't see the Cooler, this is like our backup as it was to help us get to 4. But also just cycle, if you really need to dig, you can bottom deck a card, take a life, draw 1, just to find that card that's gonna help you survive the turn, like find your Dormant to help you survive the turn, or find that double, or find your Golden Freezer so you can go for triple. Just I think nearly every deck runs this card now. Yeah, so we run one. 2 Frieza Resurrected Ambition. I didn't play this much. I'd rather play the other ones, like the other Frieza in that. But it's not bad. Pay 2, 1Z, you get to pop a 5 or less, so it's a bit of removal if you don't see your Salza or your Freezers and you just really need to pop something. There's a bit of hand control with the put a Z in drop if you swing with a 2 or higher. So we have a couple, like our Cooler, our Charismatic, our King Cold. So there are ones that work with it, but again, it's drop 1, unless you see like the Freezer and the Cooler as well. You're not ripping that many. What I found this card is good for though is if you really want to put on the aggression early, you play this turn 2. So you swing with Leader, well, swing with your Unison, swing with Leader, then play a Unison. Ideally you play the dual attack Cooler to get 2 more 15k swings in. Then you pay 2 for the Freezer, and then you swing 15 double, and then maybe combo your super combo on it, or go to 20 or something. But it's just more aggression, because by turn 2 you probably don't have your 3 Unisons in your drop to play your double strike Cooler, so this is just one way we can still just get a double strike through if we just really want to go hard on the aggression if we need to early on. The Freezer I much prefer though is a Dash Pack 1, Golden Freezer, Return of the Destroyer, 20k, Deflect Double Strike, 2 4Z, but it's reduced by 2. Well, it's reduced by 1 for every Unison in our drop, so but only up to 2. So as long as we have 2, it becomes a 2/2, which is a bit more reasonable. Once per turn, if a Unison goes to our drops, so yeah, if we swing with our Leader and we play a Unison, or even if we just pay for a Unison if we need to, choose the opponent's battle card, ignoring barrier, KO it, and get 5k, so it becomes a 25 double. So this is barrier removal. This is our other barrier removal, just, well, both of them aren't the most reliable, to be honest. They still require setup either way, so Fate Rebel needs your super combo and your Z, and this one needs you to play it out, and then swing with Leader, and then play another Unison, so you have to have another Unison at least. So this one's maybe a bit easier, but yes, it has deflect, but kind of like what I was saying with the rush attack example, depending on the matchup, the opponent can quite easily just clear a 2-drop that doesn't have barrier, so you have to be a bit careful. But what can be nice is doing this on turn 4. So you play this out, you swing with Leader, play Unison to get the barrier removal, make it a 25, swing with it, and then do the activate main, where if we have 4 more energy we can pay 2 and then play Unison 3 or less, and we play our Golden Freezer. So it lets us get the Golden Freezer out for 1 energy less. What's difficult though is the sequencing of it a bit, where because your opponent will probably token negate or play some sort of negate that plays something when you bring out the big Freezer, you kind of want to hold off this auto to then use it to like pop the token, or I don't know, if you're against blue and they play the like a barrier blocker like Miraculous Revival, is it? Or anything like that. You kind of have to sequence it a bit right, so it can be a bit difficult, especially if you don't have that extra Unison in your hand to swing and play it on. Or if they've cleared your Unison, then you don't have one to go on top of. So it's not bad by any means. It's actually really good. It's just you have to sequence it really right and have the right cards in hand to get the maximum value out of it. But it's probably our best Z card, aside from the Vegeta. But well, out of the Freezers, is the better Freezer. One Jiren, this didn't really come up because we have other ways to remove markers, and also you need quite a lot of Z to get it off. You need like 4Z even just to get the double. So that doesn't really come up. For slower games, it's something to bring out. You can protect a 5 or less, so you can protect the Cooler. You protect the King Cold if you're worried about barrier removal for it. But I didn't play this at all on the day. But we kind of need to run one just in case. And finally, which is a new addition, a tech I've picked up recently, Son Goku Awakened by Rage. Only costs 1, 2Z, 10k, but when it's played, it gets 5k, so it becomes 15k, but the most important thing is it can't be removed from your battle area by skills until the end of your opponent's next turn. So it's kind of a nice one to go for game with, especially with like the Champa. You can do this and swing and know that your opponent can't touch it. Yeah, and the only thing that could touch it would be yellow if they final flash you or release from evil if you put the Champa on it. But I mean, that's just yellow. But against other stuff, yeah, like they can't pop it. You don't have to worry about being, I don't know, blue or activate battle like a Goku Black coming in, or Realm of the Gods, the Beerus one against blue. You don't have to worry about it being negged by red. Yeah, it's just a really nice card. Like if you don't have something to play, you need to use that one energy to sort of to swing with. Really, it's a nice little backup. But yeah, a nice one over there. And we're just moving on to our side deck. We'll go through this quickly. 2 Bigger More. Bigger More put in so much work on their day. It's probably like the worst of these kind of floodgatey type cards that stop big swingers. Especially if you just pay 2 for it and it's on your turn. Like it's not like you can counter attack or counter play it like Dirty Burst can and that. But Dirty Burst is 7 or less and this is 5 or less. Which can be helpful at times. What this card is really main for, which I would side in, is Supreme Kai of Time. This shuts down Supreme Kai of Time because 90% of their battle cards are 5 or higher. The only ones under that are like their little overrealms, like a Time Regulator and maybe a Revived Ravager if they're running that one, and if they play the Boo Z card. So the amount they can throw at you is greatly reduced. So it's really good for that. Against SS4 Vegeta, you can use this to stop the big Gogeta, which is good, but it's the one reason I hate SS4 is even if you do that, then your opponent just pivots into going wide and just swinging it with you with the Goku and Vegetas, like the double strike, the crit, and then maybe going into a rush attack or a Defender of Life, because they're all under 5, so it doesn't shut down SS4 by any means. But if you feel that you can survive that, like again, like as long as you have all the pieces, like if you have the Dormant and that, then you could probably survive. But it's just seeing all the pieces. And also Red annoyingly has a really good answer to Dormant with the not Imposing Presence, the other King Vegeta one, the one where if you Dormant for free, they can counter it, which is really annoying. So you kind of have to pay 1 for your Dormant if you're worried about that, which is annoying. So it's still good. It put in a lot of work against Supreme Kai of Time, which I did actually beat. So yeah, a lot better than I thought, but very match dependent. But yeah, still very good. One Fu, the Dark Banisher, which I didn't get to use because I didn't play a single blue or yellow deck on the day. But against slow decks, this is really good. Especially now that God Sealing is gone, like there's not a lot that can hit it. So it's coming down, and then your opponent can't activate skills unless they choose 1 card in their hand and send it to their warp. That is any skill, any activate main, any activate battle, any auto, any counter attack, any counter play, anything, they're dropping cards. And if you're trying to go for game and they don't have a huge hand anyway, or even if they do, but you've just built up a bit of a board, like this is going to put in so much work. And yes, it costs 4, so ideally, yeah, you build up a bit of a board beforehand, but I'm annoyed that I didn't see a blue or yellow because I wanted to put it in and get it off and see how good it was, but even in testing, I've not managed to get this off. But I just feel against those slow decks, it's so good. But there will be a time where you get to play it, and it will put in the work. But yeah, it's a one-of at the moment. I do think it's very good. 2 Dabura for hand control, pretty self-explanatory. Hand control isn't really popular at the moment, but I just know the one day that I decide not to have Daburas in my side, I will start seeing hand control and I'll regret it. So I always keep 2 inside just in case, to kind of deal with that hand control a bit, but pretty self-explanatory. 2 Gohan. I used to do 1 in main, 1 inside, but I just kind of went to side now, where if I know I'm going up against a deck that plays a Unison, then both just come in. So against red, like the SS4 Gogeta, the blue Android 1718, Boo Unison, these two come in. Yeah, just it's your Unison removal, goes to Z, pay 1, remove 3 markers. So if it's your turn and you're facing Unison with 4, you swing, get that damage through, pay the 1, remove the last 3. It's so good. Yes, you can pay 2 and you have a 25 crit that KOs something, which is pretty good, but you're mainly using it for the Unison removal. But yeah, they go in against decks where they play Unisons. One Dodoria stops a 2 or less if we have a Unison in play, which 9 times out of 10 we will. This is mainly to stop floodgates, because all of them pretty much are reduced when they're played, so this stops a mecha, this stops a Topo, this stops the Android 14 in Gamma, the Android 14 floodgate, it stops the Gohan one that Gamma starts using now, the SH Gohan. It stops a lot of floodgates. I used to have it in main, but I just decided again, mainly for blue and yellow, that I'd put this in. Ideally I'd have 2. I ordered one 2 weeks before the tournament and it didn't turn up, so I had to make do. So I'll have to show you. We have a Focus Breakthrough, kind of essentially the same kind of thing. It is a 3 or less. The only downside is I have to be at 4 or less life, which isn't that difficult with Cooler, because you take life, but I just think Dodoria is better, especially because it's a battle card as well. You combo if you really need it, whereas Focus Breakthrough is an extra card. So once it arrives, the Dodoria will go to 2 and I'll take the Focus Breakthrough out. But on the day, yeah, I did the split, so I had to. One Shock and Death Ball, just for more aggros, just to have another hard negate. Another Blue Impulse, mainly for Kai of Time, but just, let's say, good against any deck that goes wide that doesn't really have barrier. So I didn't see any but Agents of Destruction. Yes, they might have the Turles that has barrier, but everything else is battle cards. Yeah, actually that deck plays a lot of battle cards on your turn. Well, I mean, the Garlic Jr. negate is a battle card, and it plays another battle card when it's played. So yeah, that's good for those 2 black aggros, Kai and AOD. Blue Impulse is really good. Let's keep one inside. 2 Koisakai. Again, more for blue and yellow, or more for yellow actually. But I didn't see any yellow, so I didn't play it. But pretty much a staple sideboard card these days. Also helps to fix your hand if you need it. But yeah, I didn't actually use it on the day. There wasn't really a deck that I thought it would put in the work with. But still a staple sideboard card. 2 knees, so yeah, 2 in main, 2 inside. This is also really good for aggro decks that go wide, because you negate and then you pick a battle card that hasn't swung yet and lock it. 2 go in against Supreme Kai of Time, that really helps me secure the win against it. Yeah, so 2 in main, 2 inside, it's just star negate, and 9 times out of 10 will stop another battle card attack as well, so really good. Oh, that's it, yeah, another Focus Breakthrough, but yeah, that should be another Doria, and will be when it eventually turns up. And then just an overview of what I actually played on the day. Apologies for the very basic slide. Again, this is my first video. They will get better with time, I promise. But just a quick kind of overview of what I played. So 7 rounds, only 4 decks, was because I saw 3 Sin back to back, which was not fun. But yeah, only 2 colours on the day, and 3 of those decks were red. So a very red orientated day, which is not ideal, because especially coming out of the recent Worlds, I was not expecting a lot more blue and yellow, which is kind of what the side deck was more built for. So a little annoying, but we do what we do with the hand we dealt. So quick overview, 2 pans played on the day, beat both the pans. Not an easy deck to beat by any means, but probably out of the 4 it was the one that the win came the easiest. Again, it's just, again, it's the kind of thing, isn't it? It's not as oppressive as Sin and SS4. Still good deck, but it's a bit more manageable. A lot of the stuff doesn't have barrier, so it's quite easy to pop with all your stuff, like your Salves or your Charismatics. I did Blue Impulse one of the pans to clear their board, which helped. But yeah, not too much else there. Supreme Kai, just about one, but yeah, all those stuff I said inside just really help against this. The bigger Maws basically shuts down their turn. None of the stuff has barrier, so all our stuff can pop stuff. Our Salzers, our Charismatics, our Blue Impulse. So I decided another Blue Impulse for Supreme Kai. Sin, I mean, Sin won the tournament, so I'm not too fussed that I only won one out of the 3 that I played against. And even saying that, I'm pretty sure the only way I won the one of them was I just got very lucky. He didn't see his negates, he didn't see his free negate, he didn't see a token negate, so when he was tapped out I could just go for game, which shouldn't really happen for the amount that Sin draws. Again, I think I just got very lucky. It's a really tough matchup, and again it won the tournament, so yeah, not too much to say there, but at least I won one. And SS4, I only played one, but I lost. I hate this deck, guys. It's probably my most hated deck at the moment. At the time of recording, the ban list hasn't actually come out yet, so I'm hoping if you're watching this in the future, the ban list has come out and this deck has been addressed in some way, because the hit to the Goku, which acts as like a Senzu Bean, just does nothing to the deck. It's still just stupid. The hand size and that. It doesn't matter if you pick them all or anything, they just swing under it, and even if you can survive all of that and you try and go for game, they still have a double digit hand. Just, yeah, I don't like it. I really don't like it. But yeah, I couldn't win that one. I managed to survive a bit. I think I said earlier in the video, but yeah, I did use the secret rare to steal their. I used my secret rare to steal their Unison. I did a bigger more them, so it slowed the S4 Gogeta that I knew they did have in hands, because they top 3'd it, so I knew they had it. But again, even with a dormant and that, like, it's still so hard. So yeah, not ideal running into so much red, but we still did okay. And then just jump back to the deck there again. But it's going to be the end of the video. Yeah, that is my top 64 CUDA deck list from this month's European Regional. Again, really happy with how it performed, especially because it's green. Didn't enjoy seeing so much red, but we still cracked that top 64, which was great. Again, this is my first ever video, so would really appreciate the support. Now that I've actually done a video, I hope I can start putting out a bit more. There's another regional in 3 weeks, so I hope to do another video on that. No idea what I'm going to play yet, but going to be tested in those 3 weeks, I'm sure. And again, just any like stuff I'm messing with, local stuff, cheeky stuff I found in that, all that good stuff I hope to start putting out. So watch this space and do all that good stuff. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Catch you guys later.